Yes, thank you. Good evening and welcome to Sports Talk. We're going to have the same guest that you just heard with Marty Brenneman on Reds Line. Marge Schott, as Marty Brenneman said, and I think correctly so, is now the First Lady of Baseball in the city of Cincinnati. In its long, illustrious career, Marge Schott is the First Lady to ever sit in the chairman's seat, the owner's seat, although a limited partner in previous years. You have, Marge, certainly caught the attention of an awful lot of people here in Cincinnati. Do you agree?
I hope so.
Yeah,
Trump.
we're on. Yeah.
Are we on, Trump?
Sure.
Okay. You can see I'm a pro at this,
Yeah,
Trump.
Doug, I have a question. Is Marge going to hear your instructions to me through her headset? Okay. We'll try not to interrupt because he talks to me every once in a while, but...
Okay, fine.
All right. Have you enjoyed it so far?
It's been overwhelming, Trump. It really has. I love the people in Cincinnati and our surrounding area. I just like people, but I just have never seen so much support on one thing in my life. I mean, I'm getting letters I don't believe. I'm getting gifts I don't believe.
Such as what? What are you talking about, gifts and letters?
Well, I got a letter. I guess and right now we have to decide what we're going to do for this man. I mean, when at the press conference they said, what if this all doesn't work? And I just kidded and said, oh, we'll take up a donation. And I get this letter through the mail, how he loves Pete Rose, loves Tony, loves Davey, and that he's out of work and he's on unemployment, but he still wants to help with the 1984 loss, and God love us, and he's sorry he can only give $10, and he sent me a
You're
$10.
joking.
I kid you not. He sent me a $10 bill, and so I'm going to have to do something special for this man. But I mean, this is the way. I think the public, you never can underestimate him. I mean, he felt this strong about this that he sent that to me.
Yeah.
And so it's been something. I even got a very plain card sent through the mail, and it said, we knew you were a short time, but we enjoyed it, and it was signed by Vern Rapp and his wife.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, no kidding. We've got it from Canada, Iowa. I mean, it's just absolutely fantastic. Flowers, I thought I was at a funeral the first week, I'm telling you. I got,
at home, at the dealership?
I got
at the
apples
office?
from Sanciola, in a darling little basket with note paper, and of course I'm trying to answer all these things myself, but it's pretty overwhelming. I'm going to have to get some help to do it.
Marge, how long have you been involved with the Cincinnati Reds? When were you first a limited partner?
81.
81.
When the Williams first formed it.
Put it together.
The Nipperts, yeah.
When you began in 81 as a limited partner, did you in any way, shape, or form foresee Marge Schott as the majority owner of the Cincinnati Reds?
No way. Because I can't visualize anybody giving up a love like this. But I'll tell you this, I was just as proud being a limited as I am a general. I was just as proud. I felt, boy, I own part of the Reds. I mean, that to me is a very big thing, and I'm sure some of my other partners feel the same way.
Mm-hmm.
There's been great support. The Williams have been very helpful. Joe Williams' wife, Helen, has been helpful. The Nipperts have been out of this world. God love them. They are true Cincinnatians. There's no doubt about it.
Let's talk about, I got a lot of questions for you.
I hope they aren't scary.
No, they're not scary. They're not scary.
I mean, if you leave the air out of tires, I mean, I don't know what to expect.
No. Marge, if you didn't park in my spot, we're fine, dear.
I mean,
we got no problem. No, here's the question. There has still not been approval by the league, correct?
Right.
Is there any concern on your part that they're...
No, we knew when we went up there that there wouldn't be a vote taken. They had a very, very long meeting because of a situation in Texas. Again, it involves the television or these whatchamadoodles. I wish they had rules. I wish they had rules on it. I wish they had had rules a long time ago, because it puts a team like ours in a very difficult position. We're in the smallest market, for a major league team. And that's why it's so important that we get our surrounding areas behind us, and I know they love the Reds, too. In fact, the Reds aren't just Cincinnati's team. They're really a five-state team, you might say.
They were a number of years ago, although some people recently have said they've kind of become Cincinnati's team once again because we're not getting those people from the outlying areas.
We'll get those people from the outlying areas. Okay. You mark my word.
Okay, back to the partnership.
Yeah.
Is it sold and in place, and are all shares distributed, and is the money there, and am I actually looking at the general partner of the Cincinnati Reds?
Well, I hope so. I hope I'm not going through all this as an exercise. No, we knew they weren't going to take the vote up there this time. And, of course, they are very particular, and I was okayed as a limited. I feel no problem is a general, and we're all set with the bank. Shotzi's going to go on the loan.
Marge.
That's what I told the president of the bank. I said, do you use a paw print? How do you do this? But no, I'm only kidding. It's a good idea, though.
It'll never work, but it is
I
a good
know,
idea.
I know. It's a good idea. It'll stun the financial community. But it's going to take, I hope we get it done in a hurry because we're all chafing at the bit to get in and get this
So
thing
what you're
done.
telling me is the limited partnerships have not, in fact, been sold yet. They are not totally
They're
distributed.
not totally in place because you can't, it's like having a grocery store. You can't sell the groceries without the store, you know? But,
Now, wait a minute, I'm missing something here.
well, I mean, until it comes back official from the National League, you
Mm-hmm.
know. I'll tell you one thing, though. I met some of those guys up there, and I told them they all have to help me now. They're really some super, super people.
Fellow owners you're talking about?
Fellow owners, yeah. George was up there. You know George.
Yes. You don't need the last name for George when you speak of baseball, yes.
And I had to go into this meeting after 4 hours waiting because they were on the Texas deal, and they brought me in this room, and there was a great big podium up there with all the commissioners, and on the right side, all of the owners of the American League were, and all the owners of the National League were on the left side, and they didn't tell me this, but they took me up to a microphone to state my case. I thought, oh my God. And I just told them I love Cincinnati and that Cincinnati's going to get the job done, and that I wasn't there as a woman, I was there as a Cincinnatian. But before I got up to the mic, the Peter Uberoff said, George is the one in the red tie, Marge. Like if I was going to, I was so nervous I should find a red tie. And next thing I knew, George screamed, where's Shotzi? So I screamed back, she's coming the next time, George, but your car is outside. I mean, and then I had to go into this serious thing, you know, so it was kind of funny. And later on, then they, of course, ushered me out because, you know, you're not allowed to be there if you're not a member. They ushered me out. I went back up to the lobby. And who comes up to the lobby? Must have left a little earlier, but my friend George. So George came over, so I hugged George. And I said, George, I'm so sorry about some of this press stuff. He said, they love it. And I said, do you know I'm the Cleveland Shot? He said, lady, I know all about you. He said,
Wait a minute, what's the story about the Cleveland Shot and George
Well,
Steinbrenner?
you know, he's sort of kidding, you know, like, you know, I'm not want to deal with this used car dealer or something. And our family had been very active in Cleveland, you know, because cars towards the end weren't the big things with the Shots. And they were very active in Cleveland. In fact, Dad Schott, I think, had looked at the American shipyards or something with George Steinbrenner's father. So, you know, I kind of wanted to let him know I'm just not a used car dealer in Cincinnati.
Oh, I see.
You know, George.
I see.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I understand.
But anyway, and he said to me, he said, we'll help you, kid. And he left and walked out, so it was kind of funny. I'm going to send him I'm going down to Cox tomorrow and get a Yankees hat. They're the only ones that have one in town, and I'm going to put it on Shotzi and make a sign that says, George, I'm a free agent, you see. He might pay Shotzi enough, you know, for me to buy the whole club. I don't know.
Would you like that?
Huh?
Would you prefer
I
owning the
wouldn't
club?
part. I wouldn't part with Shotzi.
No.
What?
I mean, would you prefer owning the ball club outright as opposed to being a general and limited partner deal?
I guess it'd be easier. I don't know, except we have such wonderful partners and people that are strong area people themselves, that it is fun to be with other people on something.
Are you still selling limited partnerships?
Well, it's not so much selling them.
Okay,
We
because
really aren't
see-
getting into it until we get, you know.
Okay, that's what I don't understand. In other words, what you're saying is, before you can go to people who are prospective limited partners,
Right.
you must have approval from the National League that you will be accepted as the general partner?
Well, let's say I wouldn't feel right about making a deal with people unless I have my deal all set and right. you know.
When is it going to happen? I mean, when's the next meeting of the owners to...
They voted, George told me, they voted unanimously to take the vote through the mail or on telephones. I think their other concern, too, they always have a concern whether something is capitalized and so forth and so on. And also, see, they were all away at Christmas, and they didn't have time to get much of the information we sent up there. We didn't have that much time. You know, this was a
Sure.
pretty fast one. You know?
Yeah, it was. Christmas gift to Cincinnati, and it's one I think we'll all remember. when I mentioned about the limited partnerships, you said you're not really selling them, although you must approach certain people to
Well,
say.
see, any new limited partner has to be accepted by the league, the same as they accept me.
Mm-hmm. Well, now I'm really confused.
They have to, anybody who comes into ownership of a baseball team, they're very particular, has to be accepted by the commissioners.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And voted by the league members.
Okay. Here's my confusion.
Okay.
You're going to wait to be accepted by the National League as a general partner,
Right.
and then solicit the limited partners, and yet they want the name of the limited partners before you'll be approved. What am I missing here?
Well, I mean, they're just they're very particular who gets into the ownership of a baseball team.
So they want to know before they give you approval who the limited partners are.
No. Any limited partner coming in would have to be approved by the league before I could have them as a limited partner. We all had to be. I had to be approved as a limited partner before.
Mm-hmm.
They're just very, very particular.
So which comes first? You approve.
I come first.
You being approved as the general
first.
partner.
Right.
That is. You make the loan for the team first, then
Right.
sell. You're approved, then sell the limited partnerships.
You got it.
Has it been difficult
To what?
to sell those, to encourage people?
Well, I'm really not in a position, I like to wait until I have something before I run out.
Yeah, but I'm
There's
sure
been
that,
tremendous interest, yes.
yeah, I'm sure you've made a phone call or two or knocked on somebody's door and said, hey.
I've talked to some people, yes, but we have, a lot of interest out there. This time, though, some of the interest might come outside of Cincinnati.
Really? You'd be willing to do that?
Well, it's not a matter of being willing to do it. Let's face it, we draw tremendous from Kentucky. We have a tremendous following from Indiana. These people feel that they're part of the Cincinnati Reds,
Mm-hmm.
and it's true, they are.
And you feel that they should be allowed a chance at ownership on a limited partner
I feel
basis?
if they're people that would be, I have to be considerate of the partners that are already in there, because some of the partners might even want to be more partnership than they are right now. See?
Or less?
Or
are some...
no, pretty many are sticking at Carl Kroc, which is amazing. He's in Chicago, he's our Chicago connection. And he is so interested in the Reds that, boy, you couldn't get him out as a partner.
Is that right?
And I think that's a compliment to our town, I really do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a compliment to me, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He said he can hardly wait till spring training.
I think we're all very anxious for spring training to start. Very
I do,
anxious.
too. I am, too.
And I would think that you would be anxious for spring training to start for one reason alone. That means that all the nuts and bolts of this, all the contracts are signed and all of the ownership is in fact in your pocket.
That's right, and everything is settled, and it's easier. I like to have everything settled before I start moving, except we haven't been moving. It seems like I've done nothing but Red's business.
Is that right?
Oh my gosh, it's becoming a full day a job every day. Yeah, it really is.
We're friends, we're acquaintances. Marge, what in the world possessed you to, after reading the headline in the paper that the Reds lost $4.5 million, either on paper or in actual dollars and cents, whatever it is, to suddenly say, wait a minute, I'm gonna buy this team? What? I mean, you're not a woman. You're a business person who can make a clear choice as to a profit. What in the world possessed you to get in baseball?
I don't know. My husband probably turned over in his grave. Maybe he'll come back and help. No, I tell you, when Charlie died, so many people said this is impossible and you can't do this and you can't do that. I just guess I'm a great believer in this city, and I'm a great believer in the Reds, and maybe I always think it's possible to do something that everybody thinks it's impossible. I know the public, I know the people, and Pete Rose was a very important part of my decision, very important part. I don't know what possessed me to do it. I don't know. I guess I like to live dangerously, but no, this has great possibilities.
Yeah.
And I always
You have
feel
no misgivings either, do you?
not at all, because I think this franchise will always be worth. And I will admit that a franchise has to make some money. I don't think anybody's going to sit here losing money. And if the town wouldn't back it, somebody suddenly will say, "Well, if you don't want us, somebody else will want us." And I don't want that to happen. I really don't want that. And an owner would say that.
Yeah. Marge, my concern for you though.
What's your concern for me?
I mean, the Schott family in Cincinnati and in Ohio has been one of the most revered families you can find in the state of Ohio.
Well, I don't know. There are a few people that maybe didn't
Well,
hear 'em. Yeah,
we don't
yes,
pay any attention
I
to them.
adore them. Listen, once you get used to the Schotts, you can't get used to normal people. But anyway, I love the Schott men. They were my favorite.
But here's my concern.
What?
I don't want this to break you. And baseball teams have broken a lot of people in a lot of other cities with a lot better things going for them. I don't want this to cost you your health, your wealth, your well-being. And I don't want this to be an interim ownership before you say, well, we just couldn't get it done because we couldn't float a big enough loan. We couldn't find enough limited partners. I mean, I got a lot of concerns about you and the franchise.
Oh.
Are they justified?
Well, I appreciate your concern. No, I'm not. I wouldn't worry about it. I'm a pretty conservative Dutchman, I'll tell you that. That's the way our daddy raised us. And I really don't worry that much about it. Oh, sure, it's a worry. I mean, I'm up there in New York with, like I'm sitting with this John who owns Houston. God love him.
John McMullen.
Oh, yeah, and he was, now listen, you know what you're doing, lady, and this would be serious and so on. So when Chub Finney turned to him, he said, listen, you're going to scare her to death. I said, I'm going to call those Williams and tell them all bets are off. But he was so cute. Then afterwards, I think he's a self-made man. I think his dad was a carpenter. And then later on, he turns to me, he said, I own the Dome, too. I said, oh, that's great, John. But I mean...
Just what you wanted to hear,
right?
Right.
And of course, Doubleday, he was darling, too. Nels Doubleday. This is big company. There's no doubt about it. But I told him I know Cincinnati, and I feel strong. And he said, what makes you think you're going to get the fans back? I said, I know I'm going to get the fans back. I was up there selling Cincinnati, not Marge Schott. It's that simple.
And is that basically, when you approach other people to invest in a limited partnership, is that basically what you're selling
Well, it's kind of like, let me put it this way, Trump, and I don't mean to be flip. It's kind of like when you buy a yacht. You don't ask how many miles to the gallon it gets,
Yeah. I've yet to look into my first yacht, Marge, but
well,
I think I understand what
we
you're
all
saying.
not. But one thing, though, I will say this, and it's something that I would like to see happen. If we could get the Reds, and of course it means getting the fans and everybody pulling their belts in, but if we could get the Reds just to break even or make $1, do you know what a thing this would be to the National and American League when everybody says you have to lose money and this is, they're killing baseball? Do you know what a thing that would mean to both leagues?
Well,
and I'd love
I think
to
they'd
see.
make you commissioner if you
Thanks,
know that?
Thanks, Trump.
You get
no,
more
I think
trouble.
Peter is this. I think this new commissioner is going to be fabulous. I quick bought the magazine. He was on the cover. It was a week old before I went to New York. I felt if I met him, I better know something about him. And of course, I'm sure he wouldn't be happy to hear this, but I was so impressed. I know he'd probably think, lady, you should be impressed what I did with the Olympics. But the thing that impressed me the most in his article was his wife and his children and he went to a Broadway show. And the language got raunchy, and they all walked up and walked out. Now, I guess that I should be more impressed with what he did with the Olympics, but there was just something about that told me something about the man. And I got to meet him, too. So, and he was a nice guy. We had dinner at the Club 21, and
Woo.
during their tough meeting, it was in the back of Doubleday's bookstore. I felt like I was going to a bookie. But we got on an elevator and went upstairs, and it was a beautiful seating area. And God, they had plates of caviar and salmon there, and they were drilling me so much. Later on, I said to Nels Doubleday, I said, you know what I'm really upset about? I didn't get any caviar or salmon. But then he had dinner at Club 21, and I was engaged at Club 21. I don't know if this has any significance.
We'll listen to Marge. You'll have to tell this story 1,000 times now. You understand it. So this
don't
might
tell
as
me
well
that.
be the first. I'm serious. Go ahead.
So
you got engaged at Club 21.
Yeah, and with a cast on my foot. But I think Schott thought if I don't get her, she might break both legs, because I was out on a date with one of his friends. But when I got the cast on the leg. But anyway, we were upstairs there, and Nels Doubleday sat on one side of me, and John sat on the other side of me. That's when he was telling me his dad was a carpenter and everything. And in fact, I wrote him a note, and I said, you sort of remind me of the Schott men, and I dearly adored him. A thank you note. But it was a lovely dinner, and it was kind of fun getting to meet these people better. And I tell you, Chub Finney is something else, too. You're not going to believe this, but we left the drill meeting to go to Club 21. And, oh no, they left you change your outfit, and then you went to Club 21. But on the way over to Doubleday Bookstore, Chubb smoked cigars. And when I was in his office, I said, I love a man that smokes cigars, because my mother family used to make the cigars, and my grandfather, my dad used to make the cigar boxes. And he looked at me sort of strange. But on the way over there, he said, I have to go in and buy a cigar. And he came out and he bought 2 cigars. I said, you're like me. I buy 1 pack of cigarettes at a time, and I smoke like 3 a day. You know, he buys 1 cigar at a time. So I just mailed him a box of eyeball cigars.
From Cincinnati.
From Cincinnati, right.
Marge.
Yeah.
This is all well and good. Do you have any misgivings at this point? The date is January 15th, and I don't want to keep harping on this point.
I know, Trump.
But at the same time, do you have any misgivings that you're not going to be left holding the bag in this limited partnership?
No, I
as
don't.
the general partner?
No, I don't have.
You don't think this is a tough sell?
No, I don't think it's a tough sell.
It hasn't been yet.
It hasn't been yet, and sure, it's a tougher sell than when Williams sold it because the price keeps going up.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you something; it's a valuable franchise. And
I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind about that.
That's
But
right, yeah.
in order to keep it here in Cincinnati, those people who run in the strata that can invest in a team like this, they read the headlines of a $4.5 million loss, and the Williams brothers are 2 guys who certainly poured their heart and soul into the franchise, and I think they'd still own it.
Well, I think the $4.5 million loss was a little exaggerated.
Really?
Yeah, a little bit exaggerated. You know, sometimes people make a little mistake. That was a little exaggerated. I'm just getting the figures on that now.
Mhm.
I just
Well, as a limited partner, though, I mean, you had to do.
well, you see, their statement isn't out. They just have a rough draft right now.
Oh.
From last year, and because I saw the rough draft yesterday. In fact, I've been studying the statements.
You got an office down in Riverfront Stadium yet?
Not yet.
You want one? I mean, you're going to be doing a lot of
yes,
stuff.
I think I'm going to have one because I'm an on-hands type person, and believe me, if I've got my dough invested and other people have their money invested, I am not going to be passive.
And we're not talking about pocket change here.
You better believe it. You're talking about a lot of dog food.
We are talking about a lot of Buick Centuries.
Yeah, that's right, and Chevrolets. I sometimes I don't think people know we sell Chevrolets. All we hear are Buick.
We'll give you all the commercials you want, Marge. This is Sports Talk. It's 27 minutes after the hour of 7. Our guest, the First Lady of Baseball in Cincinnati. Yes, it's now your turn. Tuesday night on Sports Talk. Following us tonight, Bill Cunningham. Continuation of midday. Should Martin Luther King Day be a holiday? Is there less racism today, or is it less obvious? That's Bill Cunningham's question for you this evening. Following us, tomorrow night we'll talk to one Sam White of the Cincinnati Bengals. Thursday night, Peter Edward Brose will be here, manager of the Cincinnati Reds, to talk about. I want to ask him about the winter meetings. You know, Pete just attended his first winter meetings as a manager. That's got to be a revelation for one Pete Rose. You understand that?
It's like me going up to New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned when you were up there with New York. I'm not surprised that ownership would have caviar and smoked salmon in the back of Nelson Doubleday's bookstore. But at the same time, you know, these guys, a lot of these people are saying we can't make a dime, but they sure know how to spend it, don't they?
Well, let's face the difference there, and that's where we have to. That's why I told them Cincinnati's different, but our people are going to back us. You've got to realize that we have to educate the public that we're not New York that has the big TV stations. And, I mean, they have so much population up there and their television money's so big, I guess they don't care if nobody comes to the stadium.
True.
Here he's the same way. Well, John, I'm sure he's a tough operator, but he not only owns the team, but my God, he owns the Dome, he told me.
He is very wealthy, too. John McMullen is one of the
I'm
wealthiest
sure he
men
is.
in the
I'm
world.
sure he is, but he's a very, I still think he's a conservative guy. I have that funny feeling.
Well, you can be rich and be conservative.
Oh,
Marge.
I know.
I
Some
heard
of the
that.
most. I know that
I
it
read that in some
happens. And, I
magazine.
mean, people come to my house say, "When are you going to turn this furnace up?" But the dogs like it cold. In fact, my help was kidding. They said, "My God, the team will probably have cold showers. The lights will go out at the 6th inning. They'll eat oatmeal at spring training." But no, they're only kidding. I don't know. They're kidding. All I know is they're so happy I'm involved in this and not with them. But no, my people said they've never seen me this excited for a long time about anything. Yeah.
Did I read correctly? I don't know if it was in the paper, a magazine somewhere, that Marge Schott stated that we'll have 2 million people through Riverfront Stadium in 1985. How? Didn't you say that?
I told that to New York, for God's sakes. I stood up there and told it with all my feeling. I've told it to everybody with all my feeling. I am shooting for 2 million people in Riverfront Stadium in 85. And I think if we tell, nobody's been talking to the public that much. That's a problem. They wonder, why don't we have $50 million players? Well, if you don't tell them why and the reason you can't, how are they going to understand? But the public's pretty smart, as long as you level with them. And I don't really think we've appealed so much to our, it's like, come or don't come. And I think, as was cited during the great days, we were kind of like, we got plenty of people
Sure,
coming.
spoiled.
Spoiled,
Yeah.
exactly spoiled. And I think we turned the public off. And but, like, for instance, the newspaper guy was up from Louisville. God, I should remember the name
Billy
of the
Reed?
paper. No, his
The
name in
Courier
thing.
Journal?
I was 8 minutes late. But anyway, he was up here, and I said to him, how many people are in Louisville? He said, 1 million people. I said, you're kidding me. I said, do we have Louisville night? He said, I've never heard of it. Why don't we have a Louisville night? Of course, I said, how about Louisville and Lexington night? But I think there's a little jealousy between
Sure,
Louisville.
sure.
But here is something. So why don't we have a Louisville night? It would be so meaningful. He said the people down there are so psyched on the Reds. They've always been great Reds fans. Of course, they have that Cardinal...
The Redbirds, Louisville
AAA
Cardinals.
Redbirds, yeah. But he said they just love the Reds down there. And that's what I want to do, is get West Virginia involved. And we're really a 5-state thing, but really have Indianapolis a night, But make these people really feel that they're part of our team. And I don't think that's been done that much lately.
Yeah. There's no question, too, that the addition of Pete Rose and I think the acquisition of Tony Perez,
Right.
and if Joe Morgan comes on as a broadcaster, there's nothing wrong with applying on the legacy of the Cincinnati Reds when they were great to try to attract some people back here in the...
Well, I'll tell you, people love to see a star. And when the young kids come up, it takes a little while for them to make a name, And people do still love Tony. It's so funny, you've got such a mix of age out there that loves baseball. I'll get letters from the old. There was a couple that sent me a clipping. I mean, you knew it was old. It was ready to fall apart, and it must have meant something to them when they parted with it. And you'll have to see it someday. You won't believe. You wouldn't believe some of the stuff I get. But it was a picture of an old hotel, someplace, I guess, downtown, and on the right fire escape were the old Reds players, and on the left was some other team, and this had to go back to maybe 18-something.
What were
and
they there
sent-
for? A fire alarm or something?
No, I guess it's before a game or something.
Oh,
What do
just
I
taking
know?
a picture?
Just taking a picture, and it was a very old piece, and this old couple parted with it.
Keep talking,
And but I don't know what it was significant of, but they thought I should have it, and I thought that was kind of cute.
I
Now
agree
what
with
do you?
you.
Now what are you going to give
Well,
me?
I just got this from somebody. I'm not even sure that I still have the person's name, which is awful. But people send me stuff too. Like, look at this. This is a Babe
I hope
Ruth
I never get
baseball
anything
counter.
ticking in case we don't play. Isn't this adorable?
Yeah, look at it here. There's a souvenir of Johnny Vandermeer's 2 no-hit games.
Isn't this a nuts? Well, one of the newspaper guys was there at the house the other day from Hamilton, and my mother-in-law gave me my husband's,
Look at this.
what were those, playing cards? And I reached in a,
Look at this.
isn't that, hey, that says Schott. With 1 T or 2 T's?
Two
That's
Ts.
2 T's, you're kidding me. 3 of the Reds pitchers. I don't believe this. Are
But-
you kidding?
No, I'm dead serious. People send me this stuff all the time. I mean,
I didn't know we had a shot on the team.
it's been a while. Let me find out who that guy's.
We got to find out who he is.
Well, you got a book here put out by Jim Ferguson. It'll tell me that in a hurry.
It will?
Yeah.
Who that shot was?
SCH Gene Schott, a pitcher from 35 through 38.
Where was he from, I wonder?
SCHOTT. Huh?
SCHOTT. That's the way we
OTT.
spell ours.
Gene Schott.
Isn't that the nuts? I tell you, I'm learning so much tonight. It's unbelievable.
But I understand what you're saying, though. When people say that, when you say that they just send you things, I've got the darndest things. Like, here's a picture of the Antioch 9 in 1869, which is one of the original Cincinnati Reds baseball teams.
Isn't this
Look
something?
at this.
I got a very fancy typed letter on very hot letterhead today with a guy with 3 paragraphs. He wants me to answer it. Oh,
Right.
look at this.
That's the
Cleveland Baseball Club, American League, 1936. Isn't that the nuts? Don't they look cute? Look at them. Huh?
But I know what you mean when you say that people
I
just
know.
send you stuff. We had a guy who sent us, Doug will remember this, a guy sent us a baseball with Christy Mathewson's name on it and an umpire's name on it. And it was while Christy Mathewson was a manager of the Reds back in the 20s,
Yeah.
I guess. And he said, "Is there any value to this baseball?" And I said, "I haven't the slightest idea. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll call Roger Rule of the Reds, and I'll call the Cooperstown, the Baseball Hall of Fame." So I called a guy up there that Jim Ferguson told me to call, and he said, "We'd love to have the baseball. We don't have a lot of things with Christy Mathewson's name on it." So I sent the baseball up there. They gave this guy, I think it was like a 5-year pass to come to Cooperstown anytime they wanted. Gave him credit for having the baseball.
You're kidding.
There's stuff like this all over the place.
You know, we
Marge.
almost had Baseball Hall of Fame, didn't we, in town here and missed it, or it got messed up, or
I don't know.
something was supposed to be out of Kings Island, I think. I had heard something about that.
How long ago are you talking about?
A number of years ago, and they were talking about bringing it down there. But, you know, it's so nice when people part with their things to somebody that they feel will appreciate it.
Yeah. You got to take care of them.
I know, Guy even, well, that's what I say. I've got to answer each and every letter and send them a sticker for their cars. That's what I want to do.
Well, let's go to the phones here, but first we've got to take a break because I want you people a chance also to talk to Marge Schott. And you've filled me in on some of the questions that I had about ownership and where it's going, and I don't want this franchise totally on paper in a loan situation, because this is a business that just eats capital alive.
And something that frightened me too was that a group might have gotten this team, and if they knew the big bucks were to be gotten out of town, that could have happened too. You know, I think we have to be very cautious who our partners are.
But you're not afraid. But you're not afraid to offer a partner from outside of the city a chance at the Cincinnati Reds.
Not if their city is part of the Reds. Our draw is really outside.
Wait a minute. How do you mean the city?
Well, say like we draw so much from Indiana and Kentucky. I mean, it's a tremendous drawing area for us. I mean, the Cincinnati Reds are really they belong to the 5 states. I know it's you know, it's like the Greater Cincinnati Airport. It's sitting over in Kentucky.
True,
you know.
True.
But you've got to remember that a tremendous amount of our draws is from outside of Cincinnati, and we need it for the sport. We really do.
Yeah.
We just can't do it in our town.
This is going to be totally off the wall, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Good.
Would you ever consider, I mean, not as a last resort, but would you ever consider a certain percentage of the ownership of the Cincinnati Reds in the public's hands from Hamilton County, from Cincinnati? Is that by SEC standards legal?
I don't know if it's legal. You see, we'd probably, to do something like that, you'd have to almost be a corporation. And there might be the day someday when we do change the Reds to a corporation rather than a partnership.
And make it an over-the-counter
and make
exchange
it, yes,
stock?
it's a great possibility where people say, I have a share of the Reds, you know. You can't have 1 million people doing one thing, but it's like every other corporation, just like my corporations. Of course, I own, you know, all of my stock myself, but there are many corporations that, as long as you've got the leadership and maybe somebody, you know, hold the majority of stock, because some of our partners, you see, own more than one share.
You know, my fervent hope for you is that we, the press, I'll include myself, press and media, we don't ruin this for you, because we will examine you until you're tired of answering the questions.
That's why I said, Trumpy, are you going to be nice to me?
Sure,
you
I'm going to be nice to you.
sometimes.
No. I'm going to be nice to you.
I want to tell you one thing, and I hope some of the press are listening. I don't know if I'm the only owner that loves the press, but I have always been open with the press, and I'll tell you this, they have never, because most people say don't talk to them, tell them no comment. That's not my style, but I'll tell you one thing, the press has never done anything but help me, and they've never hurt me, and in this thing right now, I really appreciated all the good press we've had. There hasn't been a downer, and I just haven't been hurt by the press. I hope I never am.
I think everyone's behind you. I really do. I think
so.
everyone hopes that
I think
that
if
you
you let the
succeed.
press know and you let the public what's cooking, you know, this no comment stuff, it really doesn't get anybody anyplace. There are times you have no comment, because there are times I won't, you know, Housen will be the guy.
Sure,
you know,
sure. Let me give you this story off the Associated Press that certainly will interest a lot of our listeners. I'm sure you read the story about one Edwin Moses and his problems with supposedly soliciting a prostitute in Los Angeles. Well, the deputy district attorney for the city of Los Angeles says he made a mistake when he told reporters that Edwin Moses had been charged with soliciting a prostitute in possession of marijuana. Mike Wilkinson now says the case is still under investigation for filing, and no decision has yet been made. Moses proclaimed his innocence at a midday news conference. He was supposedly arrested on Sunday released on his own recognizance. Now it does appear that they may not have a case at all, and it may kind of go by the wayside. So that's good news for people up in Dayton. Marge Schott is our guest. We're talking sports talk here, and will until 9 o'clock. Let's go to the phones here for your chance to talk with the new owner of the Cincinnati Reds. You're first with Marge Schott. Good evening.
Yes, hi. Hi, Marge. Marge, in May, Pete Rose will be, or in April, Pete Rose will be 44, and in May, Perez will be 33 if he comes back. I think
43.
43. I think he will be back from what I've heard. Is there any doubt in your mind that they can still produce to the point where their playing won't hurt the Reds? I know. I wish they were all 25 again, Perez and Rose.
I do, too. I wish I was 25 again.
There's some concern on my part that I know Pete wants that record.
I know he wants a record, but I tell you...
Don't blame me. I want to see him get it, but I just think that maybe him playing might hurt the Reds. I mean, you look around the league, and there's Keith Hernandez, and you got Leon Durham with the Cubs, and in the American League you got Eddie Murray.
Caller, we got your question,
Point
I think.
Is, do you think they can still produce?
Yes, I do. They're not kids anymore. I'll tell you one thing. I think an athlete, there's a certain amount of pride, and I think he knows when he can't produce. Of course, somebody said to me, when you're making those kind of bucks, you don't realize. But I think they know when they can't produce, it would be an embarrassment to them, and I think they know that time. I really do.
Yeah.
And I think, let's face it, though, the night Pete came back, if he didn't look like a 19-year-old, I'll eat it. I mean, he was sliding, running, hitting, and doing everything. It was almost like out of the storybook.
Yeah, if you could have 50 Cincinnati Reds games in Riverfront Stadium that had the electricity that night had,
unreal,
in the next 5 years, you'll draw 3 million people through that stadium.
That's why I flew. Got no woes. We got Rose. Love Marge.
Good luck, Marge, with the Reds. I hope they win the division.
Well, I don't know if we're going to win the division, but I think you're going to see some pretty heads-up baseball, and I think all the public wants is to know that they're all out there hustling and trying and doing their job and giving the most for the public.
Thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
Thanks for your phone call. Marge Schott, our guest. This is Sports Talk, and it's now your turn. Good evening.
Good evening, Bob. My name is Rick.
Yes, Rick.
I'm calling to give you a quick bit of background on myself. I worked in show business for 17 years, and my question is, has Marge considered hiring an attitude coach for the team? Now, the reason I say an attitude coach is that last year the team I saw coming out of spring training, if they had played that way all year, they'd have been number one, and they'd have been up there in the playoffs.
Gee, I thought the opposite.
Pardon?
I thought the opposite.
Well, not immediately. Let's say late May, early June.
I thought the team coming out of spring training was in total disarray.
Well,
I really do.
The first time I saw, I watched it on TV when Concepcion was playing third and Foley was at shortstop.
That was quite a ways into the season. That was, that was in the middle of the summer.
Okay.
That was just before Burnrap got fired, as a matter of fact, because that's when Concepcion started complaining that he wasn't playing just third base, he was a utility infielder.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking a third of the season is already gone now.
Well, whenever it was, at that point, when they first made that move, I saw fire on the field. Concepcion seemed to be happy. Foley was making a play at third, and for me, to see that kind of rapport that was there between the two on the way to the dugout after one of them would make a good play, where they're giving each other the high sign, way to go, that's good. And then all of a sudden, the attitude changed, where a player wouldn't hustle after the ball anymore. Things would happen. Now, I don't watch every game. I don't listen to every game. I don't have the time. I have a family to take care of. I wish I could. But what I saw, and I saw a change when Pete came, was, a decline in attitude from a positive to a negative.
Wait a minute.
When Pete came.
When Pete came, it became positive again.
Okay. I thought maybe I've lost my hearing or something.
No, what I'm saying is there was that, before he came, there was that moment of positive spark there that I saw happening, and I've seen plenty of good baseball teams. I'm from Baltimore. I remember infield combinations like Robinson and Aparicio. Robinson was always my hero, And the fire that went on there was always great. They were professionals. I think if Brooks had been asked to move someplace else, he probably would have if he thought it would make the team better. They were team players. They were involved in the community where when they were in town, there were times when you could go out and you could see Brooks Robinson.
Okay, I think we got the gist of what you're trying to get across. There's no such thing as an attitude coach in sports.
I think Pete's going to be sort of an attitude coach. Because enthusiasm comes from the top, you know that.
That's right.
And enthusiasm can do almost more than knowledge sometimes if you get people psyched.
And I don't think there's any question in anyone's mind that one of the most enthusiastic players ever to take the field has been Pete Rose.
That's right.
Thanks for your phone call. We appreciate it. Marge Schott is our guest. And hang on, Marge, got to do something here. I'd like to welcome a new sponsor to our program. And I'd like to talk to you about real Italian pizza. Chester's Pizza. Chester's is the authentic Italian pizza made from a homemade recipe. Chester's Pizza features moist, light, and crispy crust. Real tomato sauce simmered and spiced to perfection. The finest in toppings and covered with 100% full milk provolone cheese. Now, this is what you get when you order each and every Chester's Pizza. For 35 years, taste, quality, that's the tradition. Not gimmicks, singing robots, and TV games. No, this is a family-owned business with only you in mind. For the love of pizza, it's got to be the real Italian pizza from Chester's, located in Fairfield on Route 4 in the Fair Oaks Mini Plaza, and in Hamilton at Route 4 and Bob Meyer Road. For the best in Cincinnati, it's got to be Chester's Pizza. Yeah, 8 minutes before the hour, our guest is Marge Schott here on Sports Talk. She was the guest first hour with Marty Brenneman. She has certainly given an awful lot of her time this evening to us. For you to talk to her, talk about baseball, and it's now your turn. Good evening.
Hey, good evening, Bob. Now you got my boy wanting some Chester's Pizza.
It's a good reason. We had some down here at
How about Red's Pizza?
Yeah, Red's Pizza when you can't get Chester's Pizza. But we had some down here about 3 weeks ago. Man, that stuff was gone before it even cooled off a little bit. It disappeared. Anyway, go ahead.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate Marge and wish her the best of luck. I think it sounds like she's got a really good attitude about taking this on, and I think she's going to probably do the franchise a lot of good. I have a theorem that I'm working on here about these games on TV, etc., and I'd like to run it by you real fast, and then you guys can kick it around and shoot me down or whatever. I grew up outside of Chicago, and the Cubs show all their games, and they have for a long time. And as you know, they set a attendance record this last year, and that's showing day day baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Day baseball, hard to draw a crowd showing all day baseball, as you know. Small park, 38,000.
But it's a town of 7 million people.
Well, granted, but we're talking about drawing from Louisville tonight and Indianapolis and really the surrounding area here, and the people that go into Chicago for the ball games. We lived about 50 miles away, and right now in Middletown we're 40 miles away from the ballpark. And when we get ready to go to a ball game, it doesn't make any difference if the Cubs are on TV or the Braves are on TV. When we get ready to go, we're going to go.
So what's the point you're trying to make?
Well, the point I'm trying to make is that I don't think not showing baseball games on TV has all that much to do with the attendance. Proved out by whether the Cubs got 7 million people to draw from or not. It took them all those years to set that attendance record, and they did it by one thing.
Winning.
Winning, right. That's the whole point.
So what does that have to do with population or television games?
Well, by showing games on TV, I think you keep the fans interested. It sure does make a difference for me, I'll tell you that. You can follow it.
I'm going to let me talk here for a minute, if you don't mind, caller. I'm going to agree with you to a certain extent. The extent by which I agree with you is that the last time the Reds were the talk of professional baseball was 1976. All right, it's now 1985. That's 7 years later. At about age 7 to 12, I think most kids get interested in baseball. If the only time they see baseball is on television, There's nothing wrong with that. And if you create some interest in a kid at 7 to 12 years old now, so that by the time he's 17 or 18 years old, he's buying tickets, I think you've accomplished something. And it seems to me that we're now pushing to the next generation of baseball fan. Where's he going to come from? It's the kid who's used to watching things on TV, as opposed to you and I used to going to the ballpark and listening on the radio. I think that the market has changed to that extent. You're not going to get more people, in my estimation, coming from the top end, the old line baseball fans. You're going to get them at the other end. And televising the Cincinnati Reds on a more regular basis, I'm not sure is really that bad. Marge, you're the owner. What are your thoughts?
Well, as I say, some of my information might be wrong because I'm new in this game, But I understand it is not the Reds that have stopped the televising of games. There's a cable that multimedia is connected with. It's the city of Cincinnati that has stopped, city council and stuff. And, of course, I really would like to go and talk to them because they have said they want to keep the Reds in Cincinnati so bad, and it's important for convention center and bringing money in. Well, if they want to, then there are certain things they're going to have to do, like not sue us during a strike and so forth. And I really feel if we could all sit down and say, come on, this is important to the city and to the people, that the city will probably maybe leave the lawyers out of it. Who knows?
Yeah, Marge, it sounds to me like you're going to be very, very busy.
Well, you got it. But I'll tell you one thing. I think it's really the city who's afraid they aren't going to get their parking and so forth and so on. But I do believe that it's better for us to pipe some games out there rather than sit here and just have our children watching Chicago or the Atlanta teams and so forth and so on. And I really believe in that. So I think we have to all sit down and work out what's best, for this city and for the fans, and forget some of this legal garbage and so forth and so on. And all of us work together because the Reds are very important to our area.
It does appear, too, that baseball has changed enough that there needs to be a little more cooperation from all sides in order to get this thing accomplished.
That's right, and we have some fans. I tell you, my mom's at St. Margaret's Hall, and our family, it's Home for the Aged, helped start that. And you can't believe the little ladies there that can't possibly get out to a game. But I'm telling you, when Reds time comes, they all have baseball things on their doors. And I mean, every room you pass by, you hear the baseball game in it. Well, this is very important that these people can pick this up on television. And this stuff about, we're only going to televise if we have a full house. I'm sort of with you guys. I really, as I say, I haven't had time to study all this. I might be saying all the wrong things, but that's happened before, too.
Oh.
You don't seem to mind doing that either, Marge. You're going to go with what you think is best.
That's right. That's right.
And not check with what the lawyers say first. I like that. I mean,
Go to work on it, Marge.
yeah.
Well, you got it, guy. It's not myself working on them. All of us have to work on these problems together. This is not just Marge Schott. This is our citizens and the people surrounding. So,
Well, I can say that there's one family here in Middletown that will be coming to the ball games as often as we can, whether they're on TV.
well, God love you. We want Middletown. We want Hamilton. We want Dayton. We really need you people, and so you get the word out to everybody up there in Middletown. They're extremely important to me.
Well, Marge, again, best of luck. I think you're going to do a really great job.
Well, we'll see, guy. Or we're going to die trying, right?
Well,
Thanks for your phone call.
I think you can do great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Let me tell you a quick story here before we break for the news. Can we get 30 more minutes out of you, and then I'll let you go?
Sure.
All right, because we got a lot of
As
people
long
here
as you're
on the phone.
nice to me, Trump.
I'll be nice. I got drafted by the Bengals in 1968. When we finally got back from Wilmington and the regular season started and my wife came in, I was given the name of a lady who was a distant relative of friends in California. Her name was Mrs. Getz, Mr. and Mrs. Getz.
Yeah.
And I called these people and I said, my name is Trumpy. I was drafted by the Bengals. The family out in California said I should call you when I got here. She said, please come up and we'll talk. And I said, where do we go? And she said, the 29th floor of the Netherland Hilton. And I said, fine. I just figured she was here visiting or something. She had a suite up there, she and her husband. And when I walked in, her husband met us at the door. It was suite 2903, I think. And he said, my wife will be with you in a minute. And I'm standing in the foyer of this suite.
Yeah.
And I'm looking across the room at the lady looking out the window with a headset radio listening to the Reds game. And she sat there until the half inning ended, then got up and introduced herself. We then went to dinner at the Masonette, and we had to hustle back because she wanted to listen to the rest of the ballgame. You were talking about the little old ladies with headset
Well, I don't know
radio.
if they like to be called little old ladies, but you're right. They are extreme fans, and some people cannot make it to the games, just like the lady that called who said she was disabled, but she still was behind the Reds. And so that's where it's important.
I then realized how important the Cincinnati Reds back in those days were.
Oh, yeah, and you were coming in for football.
Sure, that was
I mean,
1968,
that's right.
before the real success.
Right.
Marge Schott, owner of the Cincinnati Reds, is our guest. We got a break here for the news. Don't mind doing so. Be back with Marge Schott for another 30 minutes, and then she can leave. Okay? It's now 8 o'clock on 700 WLW in Cincinnati.
700 WLW News. Good evening, I'm Vicki Lynn. You think the government is big? You're right. A survey from the Census Bureau claims the government employs 1 in every 15 Americans. That's nearly 16 million government workers. Tony Sargent has more.
The survey shows the number of federal and local government workers changed very little in the 5 years, but total state government employment rose more than 7%. Overall, the nation's government workforces grew 2.5% from 1977 to 82, while total pay rose more than 50%.
We could see lower interest rates, but that would mean a dramatic decrease in how much government spends, according to Federal Reserve Chairman Paul Volcker. But he says the one-year spending freeze being considered is not enough.
If you're going to have a convincing program, you've got to begin starting in the area of $50 billion or higher in terms of immediate first step with some follow-through. I think as time passes, that kind of psychological threshold gets bigger rather than smaller.
Volcker doesn't say how much interest rates could go down with 2 or 3 years of budget cutting. President Reagan wants Congress to cut federal spending for the arts by more than $19 million. Coming up on 700 WLW, Nancy Reagan afraid to be seen with her husband?
This is my city. My name's Thursday, and I wear a badge. Sometimes I wear a dress, but that's another story. This one started on a quiet afternoon. My partner Frank and I got a call on the 3301 in progress. We found 2 perpetrators attempting to stuff 26 Toshiba copiers into a phone booth.
All right, what's going on here?
Looks like 2 perpetrators attempting to stuff 26 Toshiba copiers into a phone booth. Look, miss, what are you 2 up to?
Proving the point.
What point?
That the BD3301 isn't just one of the most sophisticated copiers Toshiba's ever made. It's also small enough to fit in just about any place.
Just the facts, ma'am.
Well, the fact is you get full edge-to-edge copies, automatic toner control, a fast 12 copies a minute, and look at this copy quality.
Nice set of prints, ma'am.
That's Toshiba. Quality in, quality out.
For more information on the BD3301, call 1-800-457-7777.
Frank, here's a dime. Maybe you better call this one in.
Can't, Joe.
Why not?
Phone booths full of Toshiba copiers.
700 WLW, it's 8:03. First Lady Nancy Reagan says sometimes she's afraid to venture out in public with her husband. She says while it's fascinating to be in her position, it's frightening and frustrating to be in the middle of decisions that will affect the country and possibly the world. A National Missing Children's Organization says Ohio has some of the country's most effective child protection legislation, with a law that requires registration of convicted sex offenders and allows videotaping of testimony from assaulted children. Speaking of children, 1,000 Ohioans got tickets last year for not having the kids strapped in the car. The State Patrol is enforcing that law.
The patrol primarily apprehends someone for this type of violation in conjunction with some other traffic violation. But they are certainly not above stopping someone if they see children crawling all over the car who obviously should be restrained. That's not the norm, though.
Wendy Schwaker with the State Public Information Office. It's law in Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana to have the kids strapped in. Be on the lookout for a water main break on Hackberry. That's between Taft and McMillan. Cincinnati has been picked, along with 2 other cities, as training centers for the 1988 U.S. Olympic rowing team. Candidates for the team will train here next summer on the Little Miami River and at Coney Island. Commissioners in Covington tonight talking about if there are enough firefighters in the city. The fire chief doesn't think so. Also tonight, there's a public meeting to talk about some proposed changes in 6 Queen City Metro bus routes. There's a meeting of the Fairfield Board of Education tonight. They're voting on a new teacher's contract. It would give teachers a 7% raise over the next 2 years.
700 WLW News, 421-NEWS. The number to call if you see something we ought to check on. The Tri-State's first news tip line for over 20 years, 421-NEWS. We're always here, 700 WLW.
The winning number drawn tonight in the Ohio Lottery's daily game, the number 120. In the Pick 4 game, the winning number was 1323. The radar forecast from the 700 WLW Weather Center: clear and cold in Dayton, 14 in Indianapolis, 19 Northern Kentucky, and 19 degrees in Cincinnati. For Tony Sargent, I'm Vicki Lynn, 700 WLW News.
We continue with Marge Schott, owner of the Cincinnati Reds, here this evening after this is what you call your extended engagement. First hour with Marty Brenneman on Reds Line, and now until 8:30, then we'll let Marge go. She's got to get home to the dogs. How many?
Oh my God, that's right. They haven't eaten. Like they'll eat each other.
How many St. Bernards do you presently have?
Well, we used to have 22. They claim that's what killed my husband, but he really had a heart attack. But anyway, we used to keep all the first litter and the second litter. It was like living with the Bengals, you know, when you went outside. Don't laugh, I'm telling you. You had to grab onto a tree. They'd undercut you in the back.
Well, how many do you have now?
Okay, we had 4. I just lost my mail. Now we have 3. We have Elsa, Baby, and Shotzi. And Shotzi, I don't know if you've ever seen a couple that had a late child and the kid's a brat.
Yeah.
That's Shotzi.
You treat them like you talk as if they're human beings, as if they're your kids, like our Irish setter.
Well, that's
Judy.
the way you get about a
Yeah,
dog,
right.
you know. And then they're so jealous, everybody wants attention at once. And Shotzi, there is no way to eat anything in our house without sharing it with Shotzi. Nothing can you eat without sharing it with Shotzi. She even has the microwave down pat when she hears that buzz.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
St. Bernards don't eat finger food either. I mean, they go for the meat and potatoes, gravy, and all the
Well,
rest
Christmas,
of that
they got so spoiled with all the goodies, you know, that they didn't eat their normal food for about a week. And, of course, my older saint, they said you got to give it cycle 4. So I mix cycle 4 with the regular food, which doesn't make any sense at all. So now they all want cycle 4. You know, they just...
All right, let's go back to the phones here for inquiries with Marge Schott, the owner of the Cincinnati Reds. You're next, and good evening, and welcome to Sports Talk.
Well, good evening. First, I'd like to make a comment, and then I'd like to ask a question. The comment would be, I wanted to let Marge know the reason that I have not attended very many games in recent years, and I know a number of friends of mine feel the same way also. And this is probably the primary reason we don't go, and I bring this to your attention, so you might want to look into the matter, is the 7:30 starting time. It's just too hard by the time you get done with the day, you get off work, whatever. It's just too much rushing around. You gotta rush home and rush to eat and rush here and rush to get down the ball.
You mean it's too early?
Too early, and it's just it reaches the point where you don't want to get down there late, and you figure if you have to do all that running around, that it's just not worth it. Whereas when they had the 8 o'clock starting time, that extra half hour really does make that much difference in being able to do your routine and leisurely go down to the game. So that's the main reason that me and a number of other. Now the question.
Well, now wait a minute. Where are you calling from?
Cincinnati.
In Cincinnati. How far away from Riverfront Stadium?
Maybe 25, 30 minutes.
25 or 30 minutes. What time do you get off work?
Generally about 5:30.
5:30. So it. 2 hours to get to the ball game. Well, okay.
I don't know how.
I was just curious.
These people from Dayton and Indiana and other places, I have no idea how they make it down there, and that could be one of the reasons that maybe attendance has dropped off in those areas because especially people coming from a lot further away than I am. There's just no way they can do it. That extra half hour is just it really makes a big difference, and it just creates a.
Except, let me make this comment. I think the time was moved up to accommodate most people on the other end. The lateness of the ball games getting home seemed to be a problem more than the earliness of the game starting. And during the week, when you've got kids who are going to school the next day, you don't want them home at 12:30. So I think you probably got as many people who want it at 8:05 as you got it that want it at 7:35.
No, I just think that it might be worthwhile doing some